On March 1, 2025, the boxing world buzzed with anticipation and controversy, centered around a potential clash between two of the sport's pound-for-pound elites, Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. The drama escalated after Crawford fired verbal shots at both Alvarez and Errol Spence Jr., following reports that Canelo had been training Spence ahead of a proposed rematch between Spence and Crawford. Crawford, never one to shy away from a challenge, dismissed the pairing as inconsequential, asserting that Spence, regardless of his training regimen, would never pose a legitimate threat to him. The undefeated welterweight champion's confidence was palpable, but it was Canelo's post-training comments that truly ignited Crawford's ire, setting the stage for what could be one of the defining fights of the modern era. Crawford's response came swiftly on X, where he trolled Alvarez and Spence, mocking their efforts to team up against him. For Spence, training with Canelo was a strategic move, an attempt to combine their expertise to counter Crawford's dominance in the ring. However, Crawford found the collaboration laughable, viewing it as a desperate ploy that would ultimately fall short. What pushed Crawford to escalate his rhetoric was a controversial statement from Canelo Alvarez following the training session. Speaking about their anticipated September showdown, Canelo questioned the legitimacy of Crawford's undefeated record, specifically referencing Crawford's recent fight against Israil Madrimov. Alvarez claimed Crawford lost that bout, arguing that moving up to a higher weight class exposed his vulnerabilities. Canelo went further, predicting that Crawford would face an even harsher punishment when they meet at 168 pounds. Crawford, unfazed, responded with characteristic bravado, insisting he remained in peak physical condition and ready to prove his doubters wrong. Crawford's move to 154 pounds in August 2024 marked a significant step in his career. Facing WBA world champion Israil Madrimov, Crawford secured a unanimous decision victory, dethroning the Uzbek titleholder. The fight, however, was far from straightforward. Madrimov's awkward style disrupted Crawford's rhythm, ending his 11-fight stoppage streak. According to CompuBox, Crawford outlanded Madrimov by just 11 punches, throwing 433 to Madrimov's 275, but scoring more in 7 of the 12 rounds. The judges scored the bout 116 to 112, 115 to 113, and 115 to 113 in Crawford's favor, but the closeness of the contest sparked debate. Madrimov's promoter, Eddie Hearn, argued that Crawford hadn't done enough to claim the belt, a sentiment echoed by Canelo, who suggested the fight was either a draw or a loss for Crawford. "He knows now why there are weight classes," Canelo remarked, emphasizing the challenges of moving up in weight. The boxing community remains divided on whether Crawford's skills can overcome the size and power disadvantages he'll face against Alvarez. Canelo, a seasoned super middleweight, has been a dominant force at 168 pounds, with a resume that includes victories over the likes of Miguel Cotto, Shane Mosley, Sergey Kovalev, and Gennady Golovkin. His only career losses came against Floyd Mayweather in 2013 and Dmitry Bivol in 2022, both at higher weight classes. Alvarez's experience at super middleweight gives him a significant edge, as he's accustomed to facing larger opponents and has developed a punishing style that blends precision with devastating power. Crawford, by contrast, began his career at 135 pounds and has gradually worked his way up, most recently competing at 154 pounds. The jump to 168 pounds represents uncharted territory, and many in the boxing world question whether he can adapt. Jay Prince, a prominent figure in boxing and former manager of Floyd Mayweather, is one of the few who believe Crawford can pull off the upset. Speaking to Sean Ziddle, Prince expressed confidence in Crawford's abilities, stating, "I believe Crawford beats Canelo. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is." Prince downplayed concerns about the weight difference, noting that Crawford shows no signs of wear and tear from his years in the ring. He praised Crawford's technical prowess and ring IQ, arguing that these attributes could neutralize Canelo's physical advantages. However, Prince was careful not to disparage Alvarez, acknowledging his status as one of the sport's top stars. "We can't say anything bad about Canelo because he is the top of the top," Prince said, emphasizing the mutual respect between the fighters. Not everyone shares Prince's optimism. Jaron "Boots" Ennis, a rising star in the welterweight division, voiced skepticism about Crawford's chances. In an interview with FightHub TV, Ennis suggested that Crawford should take a warm-up fight at 160 pounds to acclimate to the higher weight before facing Canelo. "Canelo's been at that weight for a while. He's been knocking out big guys," Ennis said, highlighting Alvarez's track record of stopping larger opponents. Ennis acknowledged Crawford's skill but warned that the size disparity could prove insurmountable. Crawford smaller, And Canelo's been dropping dudes that come in at like 200 pounds on fight night, he added, describing the matchup as a 60-40 proposition in Canelo's favor. Veteran trainer Abel Sanchez, who coached Gennady Golovkin during his 2 fights against Alvarez, was even more emphatic in his assessment. Speaking to Fight Hub TV, Sanchez called the potential fight ridiculous, arguing that Crawford is simply too small to compete with Canelo. Canelo is the face of boxing right now, Sanchez said, pointing to Alvarez's resume and dominance at super middleweight. He predicted that Crawford's early hand speed would give him an advantage, but as the fight progresses, Canelo's power would take over. Anything Canelo hits him with is going to hurt him, Sanchez said, forecasting a stoppage between the 9th and 12th rounds. Sanchez also referenced Crawford's performance against Madrimov, noting that the weight increase to 154 pounds already posed challenges. 168 is going to make a difference, he concluded. ND 4-pound king. The subplot involving Errol Spence Jr. added intrigue to the narrative. Spence, once a welterweight superstar, had been sidelined since his one-sided loss to Crawford in July 2023. Rumors of retirement swirled, but Spence quashed them, signaling his intent to return. Oscar de la Hoya, sensing an opportunity, offered Spence a high-profile comeback fight against Virgil Ortiz Jr. at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. De la Hoya envisioned a sold-out event, with Spence facing one of the hottest prospects in the sport. The fight, if it materialized, could set the stage for bigger bouts, including a potential clash with WBO champion Sebastian Fundora, who expressed eagerness to face Spence despite past setbacks in securing the matchup. Fundora's own journey added another layer to the story. After winning the WBO super welterweight title, he defended it against Cordell Booker in March 2025, scoring a 4th-round technical knockout. Fundora's towering frame and relentless style made him a fan favorite, and a fight with Spence promised fireworks. However, the WBO's refusal to sanction the bout in 2024 had delayed the matchup, leaving Fundora to face other contenders like Xander Zayas. If Spence could navigate his comeback, a Fundora fight in late 2025 or early 2026 could redefine his career. The boxing world's attention, though, remained fixed on Crawford and Alvarez. The fight's implications were monumental, not just for the fighters but for the sport itself. A Crawford victory would be a historic upset, proving skill could triumph over size in a way few had achieved. An Alvarez win would solidify his status as the face of boxing, further burnishing his already illustrious resume. Promoters, trainers, and fighters all weighed in, each offering a unique perspective on the matchup's dynamics. De La Hoya called it the Super Bowl of boxing, capturing the event's magnitude. Sanchez, despite his doubts, acknowledged the fight's appeal, predicting early success for Crawford before Alvarez's power prevailed. Ennis, Bradley, and Ortiz leaned toward Alvarez but didn't rule out Crawford's ability to pull off the improbable. For fans, the anticipation was electric. Social media buzzed with debates, with X posts amplifying Crawford's trolling of Alvarez and Spence. The narrative of Crawford chasing greatness resonated deeply, as did Alvarez's quest to defend his throne. The fight's outcome was uncertain, but its significance was undeniable. It was a rare moment when two of the sport's biggest stars collided, each with something to prove. Crawford wanted to silence doubters and etch his name among the all-time greats. Alvarez aimed to crush an upstart and reinforce his dominance. As the world awaited September, the stage was set for a battle that could redefine boxing's modern era.